Becky, before we came on air at 12 o'clock, Becky and I were talking, and like me, Becky's a team sports player, a keen netball player, and after 2 years COVID break, went and had her first game a week or so ago, and has badly injured her knee.
No.
So tell us about netball and your knee, first of all, Becky.
Yeah, I mean, I love my netball. I love my team sport. I play tennis as well. And yeah, we were raring to go. We hadn't played at all in 2 years. They'd amended the rules, but we didn't really want to play that far apart. To be honest, it seemed a bit pointless. So yeah, I went back to it first Sunday and maybe got a bit enthusiastic, I don't know, and ended up with strained knee ligaments and 4 hours in A&E trying to get it sorted and x-rayed, and now on crutches with business and 2 kids and so having to reorganize my life as I know it. So yes, it's just been one of those periods of time, and I've done a lot of sitting around. I've had to take my activity tracker off because it's just depressing to 100 steps I'm doing every day, if that.
Becky, I had a similar experience, as you know, a couple of weeks ago. After 2 years of not playing water polo, we got back in the pool for our first friendly match, there were 26 odd middle-aged men who hadn't been in a pool together fighting for 2 years, and it was interesting to see one by one the numbers of men who were getting out of the pool injured, cut, shattered, broken. I think we all went at it probably like you did in your netball match. You're a bit too hard, but it was worthwhile, thoroughly enjoyable. So anyway, here today to talk about career journeys and key success factors, and actually your own story is a good way perhaps to introduce the topic. So you're at Loughborough University and then spent 16 exciting years full of change at NFU. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, of course. So I guess my talk really, and what I'm here to talk about, is mainly career and life transition. So the best place is to start with my own. So I've been in financial services for, by the end of it was about 18 years, working for a great company, a large rural insurer in financial services and insurance in their 2 divisions. And I started out there as a claims handler, straight from university as an interim job, as you do. Insurance was not my passion in life, but I thought, I'll take this as a stopgap. And 18 years later, I'm still there because I loved it and I loved what I did there. And I quickly progressed to first line management. And when I entered that career, I had everything thrown at me, every type of qualification, training, new supervisor development program. I had all of these opportunities thrown at me. I became qualified with the ILM, the Institute of Leadership and Management, and the ACII, which is an insurance organization. And I was moved proactively, without request, 5 times sideways into various first line management roles to increase my exposure. Which was brilliant, and I'm forever grateful for being offered those opportunities. That led to my first middle management position around 28, 29, which again, I was, said, you'd be good at this, come and do this for us. And I spent 4 years as a service delivery manager. So all of my career has been frontline operations. And as a service delivery manager, I indirectly managed the service of our regional service centres nationally. And I did that for 4 years. And then I started to hit my mid-career, both in terms of the life cycle of my life and my career. And I had a child and left to go on maternity leave at 32. And then I came back to work, and I guess that's where things started to change for me as I hit my mid-career, and I came back to work part-time.
Did things started to change for you as you reached your mid-career, I think is the
Mm,
words you said.
yeah.
How did they change, and how much of that was you changing, and how much of it was the perception people had of you as
Mm,
now as a mother and working part-time?
mm. So definitely me changing, but actually not in a way that I thought I would. So I came back from having children much more confident, actually. Um, I go on to talk later about, you know, various questionnaires you do to, you know, find out who you are. And there's so many of these things around. When I did these things before I left to have children, and when I came back after I had children, they looked slightly different, actually. And my drivers were slightly different. And I came back to work because I came back to work part-time. And when I reflected on why I did that and why I came back 4 days a week, I knew that's all that they would allow me to do in that organization. And so I had preempted that perception. I had seen women go in front of me in middle management working 4 days. No one was working less than that. So I thought, I don't want to lose the level I'm at this organization. I'm going to go back 4 days. They wouldn't let me go back into my original role because that was a full-time role, but they did create something else for me where I was able to set up a customer experience area. So again, very grateful for that because it played to my strengths. I'm a troubleshooter and I like setting things up from new. And this was brilliant that I could set up this customer experience area in the department before leaving to have my second child. Again, I came back after that one, 4 days, still into middle management. I came back a bit sooner than I wanted to, again, because there was a great opportunity around to be the head of complaints and to go back into leadership, which was great. You know, this is what I wanted to do. I want to lead people. So I went back into that role and I was there 6 months before a senior management position came up. And this was what I'd always been waiting for. This is what I'd been working for, you know, my whole career was to get to senior management. But it came at a time that wasn't right, really. You know, I'd only been back in work 6 months after having my second child. And after consideration, you know, these things never come at the right time. And I've seized every opportunity before. I'm going to seize this one. But I had to go full time. That was the premise of the role. Couldn't do this part time, had to go full time. And I did it. Now, I'd always felt I'd had some semblance of balance or whatever, you know, however you define balance before when I had nursery in my life and parents were around the corner. It was great. But taking on a senior role, a hugely demanding senior role, when, you know, my husband was doing the same thing in a different organization with 2 children who have hit school age, trying to be everything to everybody, it took its toll, you know, working full time. And this all pent up over a number of months. And my body had had enough. And it told me, I've had enough. Inflammation started happening in my body and it started to attack my immune system, started to attack my thyroid gland. And I got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, all from that 2 years of just looking after everybody else, getting through the day. The best way I can say it, I was surviving. I was waking up, doing what I needed to throughout the day, going to sleep, waking up and going through that again.
Okay, would you describe that as the superwoman, trying to be superwoman?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great way
Yeah.
to put it. Feeling like I had to do all of that, you know, myself, not using my network. You know, I talk about networks and your support people, you know, not using those people very well at all. But I didn't have the time to even think about how I would do that. How would I use these people? Because I was just so busy trying to get the job done, trying to keep my children fed and going to school. And then all these symptoms started to hit and my body forced me to take a break. So, you know, with this autoimmune condition comes, you know, chronic fatigue, weight gain, hair loss, depression. And I had to take time out. I had to take, you know, I was off work for over a month, forced to take time to consider and think and prioritize. I mean, up to this point, I've been very fortunate with all the opportunities that have been given me. And that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is I never felt I'd taken control of my career. I'd gone where people had asked me to go. So for the first time in my career, I made a decision to control of my own career. And I said, I need to go part-time. I need to work 4 days, but I can still do this job. I can still offer what is needed at this senior management level. So I applied to go 4 days, and by 4 days, I mean condensed hours. So I think I was only 3 hours short actually of my full-time hours, but doing it in 4 days.
Yeah. So, but and Becky, just as to clarify that, because I think when we're recruiting and helping firms recruit, there's a difference between squeezing a full-time role into 4 days, or having a 4-day role that you do in 4 days. Sounds like you were trying to do the former.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was 4 days, when I was part-time, and anybody who has worked 4 days before, you just basically doing a full-time job in 4 days, and you try and have some semblance of, a life outside of work in that 4th day. But yes, this is what I was trying to do, and was to condense it into the 4 days. And it was declined. The culture, I still maintain it was a brilliant company to work for. The culture and their working practices didn't support a senior manager working part-time. And actually I was the first female with young children who was asking to do these types of things. So yeah, I was devastated by that actually, because I just had to continue. I continued on for a couple of months. And then I got a cold, just quite simply had to have 2 days off where I couldn't do anything. One of those colds where you can't look at a screen, you can't look at anything. And I had time to think again, stop and think and take time out of my life. And I thought, what do I want? What am I doing? What are my priorities? What are my goals now? And I decided that I was going to have to step down, for myself, for my health, for my family, for other dependents, who I was looking after. I wanted to do this. So I took a voluntary demotion. And I remember sending that email out to my department. It was a very hard email to send. But actually the outpouring I got from people having then talking to me about their own personal circumstances, it opened the floodgates for other women to come and talk to me about their circumstances.
Becky, was it just women, or predominantly women?
No, it was definitely men coming as well. It was predominantly women, I would say, but men were congratulating me on doing that and taking such a step, and talking to me definitely about the pressures they felt as well. 2 in particular, actually, it's a really good question now you say that. 2 in particular who I continue to talk to this day around the pressures they find with kind of trying to get to the office, which I know is less of an issue now, and get back to pick the kids up and do their bit. Very much so.
Okay. Brilliant.
So I took a step down, went to 3 days. I said, if I'm going to be part-time, I'll be part-time then. And I took an interim job as a project manager. I got the balance I'd always wanted, brilliant. But at the same time, I was doing a job I no longer loved. And the values that are very important to me when I'm working is that I want to be challenged and I want to love what I do. So I started to look around at jobs that would inspire me, that I would love, that would challenge me, working part-time. And again, found shut doors because of how I wanted to work. And during this time, I looked around and saw the same thing happening around me, either women having to take promotions and then step back down again because they're not able to work full time. Women not even wanting to mention the word part-time or flexible working, whatever it might be, for fear of not being seen as career-minded. Women burnt out from dealing with life and whatever life looks like and work. Women struggling to find out what's needed to succeed at work when you hit that mid-career status or middle management. And that's when it hit me. I'm starting to help these women anyway. And I thought, this is what I want to do. So I left, and I said to you earlier, Mark, I've never been more challenged now. I'm never more grateful for that organisation for giving me all the experiences today but now this is what I do. You know, I help women who are going through exactly the same things before it comes to the point where life forces you to stop and think.
Becky, thank you. Just before we go on to what you're now doing, and I think we've got two sections. One we're calling the perfect storm, or you're calling the perfect storm, and then key success factors, or maybe we've done the perfect storm. And has anybody else got questions or actually want to share their own stories of this time and how they've coped? Go on, somebody talk.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself for ages, so I looked really trying to
go, Sunita.
I am a massive advocate for part-time work, flexible working. I mean, my focus has always been on working mums. I mean, obviously I understand men need that as well, but being a working mum myself, I sort of draw on my experiences throughout my career. And I think anytime I post anything on LinkedIn about flexible working, part-time working, that it literally just opens the floodgates for so many people to message me or even comment on the post about what they've sort of been through. And I think, you know, like hearing from your experience and you saying that you had applied to come back 4 days a week, which to me is barely anything, and having people say no to that. Do you hear a lot from people that reach out to you to say that they've had similar sort of experiences, and what are your sort of thoughts on how people can tackle that?
Yeah, so I do when you get to certain levels of management. So when you hit that senior management, that's where it starts to go very wrong from part-time working. So I was able to do part-time successfully at 4 days. And what we can do about it, I have a regret. So I don't regret too much about my career there. I do have a regret of when I applied to go 4 days and they said no to me as a senior manager, I felt I rolled over too quickly. I wanted and should have banged that drum a little bit more. I should have taken it a bit higher. I should have made people, it made it more visible to people what I was trying to do. I did have women come and say to me, oh, come on, you know, they wanted to get behind me on it. But because I've been ill, because of my circumstances, I didn't have the energy at that time to do that. And that I do regret that about not doing that. Not even, you know, suggest it on a trial basis. You know, there's nothing contractually that needs to happen here. Do it for trial on 3 months and then see from the company's perspective and personally whether that works for you, because it may not work for you either. And no one has to commit anything to doing that. So those are the things I suggest when it comes to it. But it's having the energy to push that door a little bit further, I think, which is something that I wish I had done, definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sunita. Good, great question. One thought I've got as well: job shares. Did you think about trying to get a job share? Have you an experience with?
Yeah, so I had a job share all worked out. Like I said, I'm a troubleshooter. I love solving problems, and I solved this problem, and I said, this person could do this. I could take this part of the department. And it was just a flat no, again, because there are no job shares in that organization. The culture is not there. The role profiles have not been set. The job specs have not been set in order for job shares to work well. I mean, I don't know if anyone's in an organization actually where this works really well, actually. And there are senior women who are part-time or where job sharing, you know, at that senior level or middle management or whatever it is prevalent. But I mean, I'd love to hear if there are organizations that are doing this well.
We're doing it all right. We found it works. Obviously, so we're a small organisation, so it's not at senior level, but we've got a three-way job share and it works fantastically for everybody. We're getting 3 absolutely amazing women delivering to one of our clients. It's working for the client because they're getting 3 lots of intellectual property, and it works absolutely fantastically for our team, and they get to the point now where they're truly sharing, so they know that there needs to be, certain, a couple of them on and working at certain times of the day and not at others, and they just work it out between them. It's absolutely marvelous. I recommend it, because we talk a lot about part-time work, but we don't talk about job shares so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's brilliant, and we need to find more of these organizations who have found this fantastic blueprint for success and promote that. Get other organizations on board with it, because in the larger organizations I struggle to find that more and more.
Right. What about key success factors?
Yeah, of course. So we know, men and women enter the workforce in near equal numbers. The numbers starkly change as careers progress. There are many reasons for this, right from what governments invest in down to HR policies and procedures, societal demands on men, the maze that we navigate, that is a woman's life cycle. And Sabrina, you articulated this really well. This is not, and I don't purely support people who have children. Home life is demanding, no matter what that looks like for you, whether that's illness, whether it's caring for a dependent, the roles that we take on at home, whether we're interior designers, we're homemakers, we might be property developers. There's so much that goes on in our life that makes it two kind of full-time jobs that you're sometimes running. So another reason that the rules changed, and this is really an interesting one for me when I started to look at this, the rules change and no one tells you. So we enter school and we are rewarded for working hard, getting your head down, keeping your nose clean, being good, polite, don't interrupt. And we're rewarded well for that at school. And you can see girls doing very well in school because they're rewarded for this working hard mentality. And you can see that in their exam results that come out. We hit the workplace and the rules change. But no one told me that 20 years ago when I entered the world of work. I'm still figuring that out now, 20 years later. Visibility, networking, branding all become really important. Actually, I was on a talk one of the talks here, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and a lady referred to a statistic that 10% performance accounts for 10%, that was it, of how successful you are in your career. 10% is down to performance. Now that statistic terrifies me, the rest being visibility and branding and things like that. But you can see that, you can absolutely see that. You can see that in the people in your organizations who will be successful. So you enter this perfect storm of circumstances when you enter your mid-career, early to mid-career. The attributes now, visibility, branding, perception, the attributes that are required of us to succeed in the workplace are not attributes that come as naturally to women. Now, I'm broad brushing and generalizing there, but it is what experience and research tells us. You then don't have the time to work on those things because you're navigating illness, you're navigating children, you're navigating caring responsibilities. You're not being thrown all the personal development anymore because that you had at your beginning of your career. You're expected to find it for yourself. And I'm supportive of that and taking charge of your own personal development. But you don't have the time always to do that because you are holding down these now 2 full-time jobs. And you may enter a culture that then doesn't support the job shares or the part-time working or the working practices that you need to navigate that maze. So this is what I guess I can go through now. We don't know what those attributes are. I'm going to go through those right now. We don't have the time to then work on those. Hopefully you can progress right forward from this talk, knowing how you can improve on those or work on those things. So I guess this is not a comprehensive list for me of everything you need to be successful. This is what experience and research have said that we need to focus on, the key drivers of success for women in the workplace. I hold my hand up and say, I did not have all this nailed in my corporate career by any stretch. I'm not here to say I did all this perfectly. There are some of these things that are an innate strength in me that I did well. And there are some of these things that I work very hard on every day and to this day as I work in business now. And what would be really great is if you could just do a quick tick as you go down this list. You know, which are the elements that you do really well at? There might be a strength, or you might be actively working on them. And which are the ones you might want to put a bit of a star next to say, maybe this is a time where actually I need to focus on that. So I'm going to go through the list fairly quickly, just because I'm mindful of time. It's broken down into two sections: confidence and competence. To succeed in the workplace, we need to be competent and confident. When we look at competence, the list is a lot shorter, because we as women are great leaders. We inspire, we engage, we take people with us, we give people purpose. But there are a couple of things that we can look at. Strategic leadership is one of them. So we're quite good at transactional leadership. We need to be, we're busy people. We have to get from the start of the day to the end of the day, and certain things need to happen to take care of ourselves, our work, our families. But that stepping back piece, that strategic leadership, where you can step back and think, what's the vision for my area, for my department, for my organization, for my life? Where do I want to be in 2 years' time, by this time next year? How do I take people with me on that journey? And then how do I revisit that on a monthly basis maybe, or how do I take time out to see how is that going, my vision? And that is what we are paid to do. When we hit that middle career, when we hit that middle management status, that is our job. In order to do that, we need to be very good at the next bit: delegation. We are too busy not to do this 100% effectively. Being that superwoman, as Mark alluded to earlier, doesn't do us any good. And my week on crutches is a great example of this, where I've had to delegate every aspect of my life out. You know, and I do this exercise with clients where we have two columns. And I did this with myself last week, where the left-hand column is the stuff that you absolutely have to do. So the way I pitch it to people is, imagine you're on a beach somewhere, you're in the Maldives, you're going out for a couple of months, you're in a lovely little hut on stilts, you know, water, swim up room, you know, very different to where I am right now with crutches here. And make this list. You're not going to be here for a couple of months. On the left is the stuff that only you can do, absolutely only you can do. And on the right-hand side is all those things that you can give out to other people, that other people could do. And obviously there's a lot of challenge into what goes into those two boxes. When I did that for myself, when I was on crutches, the only thing that was on the left was, I am me. My clients, my colleagues, my family want me and my time. So I will make the time to still have my client meetings, you know, online. I will make the time to read to my kids and spend time talking to them about their day. But everything else can be given, and was given, everything that I do, to other people. And actually it was really freeing to be able to do that. So strategic leadership and delegation, really important.
Becky, can I interrupt you there? Sorry.
Yeah.
Delegation. My experience is men delegate in a different way to women. Don't know whether that's your experience or everybody else's on the call. In that, you know, if I delegate, I'm expecting the person to do whatever I've delegated to them in their way, and I'll support and help them. I'm not expecting them to do it in exactly the same way as I would, or perfectly. And I think when I get delegated stuff to do, maybe in the house, the expectation is that I'm doing it in exactly that way.
I think that's a wonderful anecdote, Mark. I can absolutely relate to that. Yes, I know, I can absolutely see that. The bit for me about delegation is, you have to learn that, is I am still the one, and this is important for me, it comes back to that phrase around control freak, and I am a recovering control freak myself, is I'm still in control of what's happening. I still have, I imagine myself holding these different strings, and I've given out these different things to people. I will still check on what's happening, you know, because that's my responsibility. That the job that is being delegated out is still my ultimate responsibility. So yes, they have accountability for that. Yes, they should have freedom to do it the way they want, but I'm still in control of that, and still want to find out and support that person with that task. Whether my husband would see it like that when I delegate jobs out, I don't know. So yeah. Other things under competence, knowledge of self, really important. It's the bedrock of this whole list. What are your values? What are your strengths, your gaps? How well do you know who you are? How well do you ask for feedback? And act on that feedback. And I know, you know, feedback culture maybe kind of isn't where we would like it to be, and it's difficult to get that real constructive feedback. But knowledge of self is the bedrock for all of this. Personal development. Make time for it. It's part of your job. Aim to be the best at what you do. Know your stuff. If you're the head of a call center, what are the latest technologies that are out there? What are the latest practices? What conferences you're attending to make sure that you're up on all of this stuff? And this is the thing, I know it's difficult, the personal development, and it's one of those things that when you're busy falls away. But if we're looking to get on and looking to be successful in the workplace, it's something we need to focus on. Career planning. This is something I don't think I did, you know, particularly well. Where might you want to be in 2 years' time? So that when those opportunities come along, as they did for me, I can see whether that's part of my plan. Or actually, if it's not part of my plan, is that a good sideways move somewhere that will take me to a new opportunity? And that's the list for competence. You know, it's a very short one because, you know, we do focus, and because of our, you know, school days and how we've been raised, we do work hard and we are competent at our roles. Confidence is a little longer list. So the first one in that is confidence. The belief about yourself that you can create successful outcomes through your own actions. You know, my son is a great example of this. He came to me yesterday and he said, Mummy, can I get a shelf in my room, please? And I said, well, yeah, that's fine. And I showed him the shelf in my room. It's like this. And he said, no, I need something much bigger, much bigger. I said, okay. I said, why do you need such a big shelf? He says, well, I'm so good at football, he says. I'm going to get so many trophies. I need someone to put them on my shelf. I was just agog at this 6-year-old's confidence and belief that he is that good at something. And I can see it when he goes and plays football. And I can see the next thing coming out in him as well, when maybe things don't go his way. Resilience, the next thing on that list. So important due to the burdens on us, the ability to be able to bounce back and deal with pressure, both emotionally, psychologically, physically. Physical resilience, really important. Assertiveness, being able to stand up for your views, but respecting others, having your voice heard in meetings, and that all comes from confidence. And life balance and your self-balance. You know, we can talk about this, it's well documented, having that time out for yourself so that you are not forced to take that time out as I was. Having that life balance, knowing when to ask for help, knowing who to ask for help. Networks are really important. I don't need to wax lyrical about those, because you're part of this fantastic community. Know who your stakeholders are, who are your internal networks and your external. Use them for support and use them for opportunities. The next one is, for me, is mentors, role models, sponsors. Who are the people that are, as I say, in your support box? So you're Emma Raducanu, I play tennis as well, sorry, and you're looking to your support box. I've got 2, work support box, life support box. Who is in those? Who are the people helping you get to where you want to be? Banging the desk behind closed doors when you're not there, saying, Becky needs to have this opportunity, Sabrina needs to have this opportunity. Understanding your corporate culture. What are the rules for behaviour in your organisation? The internal politics. I sit on the fence a little bit with this one because it is our role to change that culture. It is our role to influence that and influence the internal politics that are there. Whereas at the same time, making sure we make the most of what's there currently to help us get on. And finally, presence, visibility, and brand. Use your knowledge of self to present who you are, and do that authentically. How are you visible? Both down in your department or area to your people, and upwards. Who are you making connections with? Who are you present with? Now, I appreciate I've whittled through that list very quickly. So I'm hoping you've managed to get all of that down. The overarching principle for all this for me is do all of this authentically. We are all individuals. There are hundreds of different ways of working on these things. If you are an introvert, you're not going to enjoy a networking event where you're there with hundreds of people face to face. It takes all day. It's going to drain your energy. You're not going to enjoy it. You're going to dread going, and you're not going to perform well on the day. But if you can find a smaller networking event with fewer people, maybe online, where there is like-minded people, that's something that you can get something out of. And prioritize. Not all of this list will be important all of the time. You know, when you're in your early career, you might be focused more on competence rather than the confidence, rather than your visibility and presence, and that might come a bit later. And take the time out to think. Really use this to take the time out to think and take control of your career and of your life. Take time out to think on your own, with partners, colleagues, mentors, coaches, whoever it needs to be, to assess the different life and career transitions you're going through, and really take some considered time to think before you're forced to do.